Alright guys, this is my 1998 Regal Cuddy cabin 9-person boat, and it's got a Chevy 350 or 5.7 in it. It came stock with a 5.0 305 I believe, and that engine blew up. The first owner, I believe, put a new crate engine in it around 2005, and then I just bought it from the second owner. And basically, I'll put a video here of it running. It does run, but it's had some issues. It won't idle down. And last year, the owner was running it, and he started smelling rubber. And the exhaust manifold. This is a Volvo Penta outdrive, which is not as desirable as the Merc Cruiser, so I got it for a very good price because of those issues. Has a brand new alternator, which I'll talk about that in a second. But basically, these Ferncos here started burning, and he smelled the rubber, and what that means is the impeller went out, and so basically it overheated, and most likely most people try to drive it back to the boat launch. And they think they can limp it home instead of getting it towed, and because of that, it basically cooked the head gaskets. It does run, it does fire up. When I looked at it, the guy told me, he said, hey, I had water and low compression in number 3 and number 5. He gave me a compression checker. We checked it, put it in, and actually he said it was going to blow 60 psi. They both blew 120, so I don't know if he did the trick where you put a little oil in there and it seals up the rings and can blow, better psi. I doubt it because I pulled the plugs first and it did blow water out. So essentially, if you don't know too much about these, I'm learning as well, so I'm not an expert, but it's important to have your boat winterized because there's no radiator on a boat, right? So the impeller pulls water from the outdrive in the back up to here, and then there's the main water pump on the engine as well, and then it circulates through the block and then also through the exhaust headers here to keep it cool, right? So when you winterize a boat, you pull the drain plugs. There's also drain plugs on the bottom here. You drain everything out. Some people put coolant in there and run it just to make sure there's no coolant or no water in the block. I am taking a risk here. There's a chance that the block is cracked and whatever, but yeah, it's a risk I was willing to take at the price. I did run it. I put my head underneath it, tried to see if it was leaking anywhere. Didn't see anything. It blew water out of 3 and 5 as well. I did check number 2 on that side. I should have pulled them all, but I didn't. But I didn't get any water out of there, and it also blew 120 psi. So I really got to go through every single one and compress and check them. I should probably do that before I tear this down, before I put a bunch of work into it. Maybe I will. But basically, the last test I just did was I got air, and I, if your engine's not on top dead center, I believe is where all the valves are closed. I'm not actually sure what that part of the cycle is called, but when the intake and exhaust valves are closed, that's when you want to pressurize the cylinder with air. And what I was trying to see is if I got bleed by from 5 into 3. I didn't, but what I did get was a bubbling noise, and let me see if I can replicate that without my compressor kicking on. Okay. Alright, so you should hear bubbling. I don't know if that picked up on the camera, and I actually just got a bunch of water on my hands. So essentially, it's leaking down. There's a potential. It's the gasket here, which just has the exhaust split, but that would mean the exhaust valve on number 5 would have to be open and then I wouldn't get like a full compression blow like that anyway. So essentially it's the head gasket. Should I do both sides? Haven't gotten that far yet. I'd love to just do this side, but if we're honest, while I'm here, I should do the other side while it's all fresh in my head and I have it in my driveway torn apart, right? You don't want to go out to the lake, or in our case a river, and have to get towed back and you pretty much burn a whole day. So and you know, I have muffs on the outdrive which supply cooling water to this, so I can test fire it in the driveway and you can run it because it's running, and that's how there's water in here right now. Don't ever want to run it dry without that. You always want to put the muffs on the back, and I'll show you that. But yeah, fairly common crate engine. Pretty much every boat in the world has a Chevy small block in it. Holley marine carburetor. That's another thing to look out for. If you're buying a boat and someone's like, hey, I got this engine, you can just have it. You also, marine engines, for whatever reason, I'm not sure, spin the opposite direction, and the carburetor is probably a not a marine grade one. I'm not sure the exact difference, but there is a difference there. And then also, you don't, you know, these exhaust headers are the most expensive part of the exhaust manifold. I think for this, I had a thought that maybe it was a problem with these, like cracked inside here, which is still a possibility, but that is also expensive. It's about $800 for both sides. So yeah, there's a little bit. I mean, a boat is just break out another 1,000. That's what boat stands for. It's a constant money hole, and it's a pleasure vehicle. It's not like a, you know, car or truck. You get work out of it. So it always seems like, oh, I gotta put another 1,000 into a boat, but that's a risk you take. So my advice is, if you want to get into boating and you want to do it on a budget and you're familiar with engines, buy cheap. Buy something that's needs a little bit of work. Most boat owners don't want work, and most marine shops are extremely expensive, and they can do that because that's what they can charge. So and all they do is work on Chevy engines essentially. So anyways, enough talking. I'm gonna drain down here, and then there's one underneath, and start to pull this top part off, and I'll let you guys watch me do that, and we'll pull the alternator off. Oh, the story behind that is, guy brought it home. He apparently had it at indoor storage this winter, which is good, and put a new battery in it. He put it in backwards and smoked the alternator and just started catching on fire. So new alternator, this thing's probably like $40. Like there's a standard Chevy, like Napa AutoZone alternator. So because of that, I was also a little weary, because he could have backdrove like some other problems to the boat, like for example the radio's not working and stuff like that. Littler stuff. It seems like the main riding harness is fine. He caught it before it got too hot and burned out like somewhere in the line, but I probably want to try to get a visual on the whole electronics system. Okay, enough talking. Let's pull this thing apart. Hey, what's up guys? So it's a few days later. I got the one side of the engine torn apart, the head, intake manifold, valve cover off, the exhaust, and I did confirm that the issue was the head gasket. As you can see here between cylinders 3 and 5, just as we suspected, the head gasket is toast. You could tell the difference just in the rubberized material is burned out, and I believe this section here is where the water, cooling water, goes through, and you can see it's all gunked up because carbon has been backfiring from the cylinder and mixing with that water to make that sludge. So even this one, you can see we have a clean gasket and this is burned out. So that's good news, I guess, because everything else looks pretty good. I need to clean up this head and I'm going to check it for flatness. Even if it's out a little bit, I think for this season I'm going to probably just run one of the thick gaskets. I was looking, they sell them anywhere between 40 thousandths and to 80 thousandths. So I need to check the specs on that, clean up, pull the intake gaskets off, get all new gaskets. It looks like someone might have changed the valve cover gaskets at some point. But other than that, it seems like I'm the first one in this engine since, Chevrolet, dropped off and built this crate engine probably in 2005. So, 15 years of run time sounds about right. Also need to clean up the exhaust manifold. This is a Volvo Penta specific unit. And here's the actual headers and the exhaust manifold. You can see some rust and water in there, so I'll have to clean all that up. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to change the thermostat and the temperature sending unit. They're cheap. And then I still got to pull the other head off, clean up everything, and put it back together. So a little slow, but yeah, we'll get there. So another issue is every time it rains, the top leaks real bad, and it's a nice top. It's a I can't think of the name. We'll go check it out, but it's a good branded top. But I am going to spray this stuff. This is recommended best stuff. It has PTEF in it, and apparently is the best waterproofer. So I'm going to put some of this in a spray bottle and spray down that cover. Might do 2 coats. We'll see how it does. And then I also picked up some cabinet magnets because the doors aren't closing properly. I put them on, and of course they don't hold the doors. So I might have to put 2 on there or figure it out. And then I picked up some of this stuff, which I've used before on like wave runners. It's a marine based 2-part epoxy. It's not like a gel coat, it's more of like a epoxy. I think it does yellow in the sun with UV, which kind of sucks, but what I want to do with that epoxy is clean up some of the chips, like right here. Probably just put a piece of tape here to catch some runoff and then slowly brush it on with multiple layers to fill that in. There's also a little mark on the other side, but oh yeah, this top. So this top is a tailor-made. That's what it's called, as you can see on that. And it's had a rough life. I can't even really secure the back here. That's why I have the tarp, because the big cover on the back holds so much water when it gets wet. So there is a center pole I have too, and then the bimini top, I'm going to coat that also. But yeah, I'm just going to spray this down, and hopefully we can get some water to bead up on it so that it doesn't soak through and just make mold in the interior like we just cleaned out. And yeah, so that's today's update. I'm going to spray that down, and I'll show you guys inside here what the engine looks like with the head off. So move forward. So I'm spraying on the Starbright. Just got a sprayer bottle, using the leaf blower to get it all cleaned off, and you can see it penetrates fairly well actually. It smells kind of like an oil and I've got about, you know, most of it covered here. It does take some time. I don't know if you're supposed to penetrate this much, but this thing is leaking real bad, so I'm just going for it, and we'll see how it dries out. You're supposed to wait 6 hours. I'm gonna do the bimini top as well, but basically I just, you know, go over it like this. So I'm gonna go the other side and do some of the front. I'm really trying to hit the threaded seams as well as possible, because I know water tends to seep in there and I want it to soak into the threads. And we've got some like buttons missing and stuff, but for the most part it does cover the whole boat. And once I put that center pole in, it should shed the water to the back, and then we'll use the same stuff to cover the rear seat. Or I have 303 protectant, which is a UV protectant. So yeah, let's do that other side and then let it dry. Alright, so the cover sat all day in the sun for about, I don't know, 9 hours. And I got a bucket of water here. I'm gonna be working underneath here, so I don't want to soak myself, but we'll do a little water, see how it beads up. That's interesting, there's like a line across here. That's interesting. Look at that. That's incredible. That was so much better than it was. Wow. Nice. So I'm gonna do the bimini top next, but I want to work on the engine tonight, so let's pull this all off. Alright, I'm back. It's a couple of days later. Gonna work on this engine, gonna get the other head pulled off. I got all my bolts and everything labeled and organized in there, including like the push rods are bagged with the parts that correspond to that particular cam. And I labeled the head as well. Plus I have it on video, but it's too dark, so I apologize for the GoPro footage. I'm gonna try to get a light in here to do this other side. But I always try to cover this with a bag, just to make sure no foreign stuff gets in here. Give you a good look at it here too. Not too bad. It looks like I'm the first one in here since this crate engine was delivered from, from Jasper. It's a Jasper engine, I guess, who probably buys blocks and then builds them. So I did call Napa to try to get a head gasket kit that extra thick, but they're like, what year is it? Obviously, what truck is it? Whatever. I'm like, well, it's a Chevy 5.7, 350 engine. And they're like, well, the last time they made those was 99. So I'm curious. I'm gonna try to get a block number off here, see what year it is, because very well could be that the block is from the 90s, and I'm guessing it was replaced in the 2000s. So yeah, but you can see it all. You got to pull the intake manifold off. Left this wiring harness here. This side I'm probably gonna have to take a little more wiring apart to get that main fuse switch there off of the exhaust manifold, and then pull that side down, because I'm going to do both heads. So, and move this thermostat housing out of the way officially. So alright, let's pull it apart. Alright, so we're going to do a little patching on the boat here. I got this marine epoxy, it's white, and I've got some fiberglass cracks. There's a few other spots on the boat I'm going to touch up, but I'm just going to build it up with multiple layers of this using like a Q-tip. So I'll just mix it up in here. This stuff's pretty good. I've used it on wave runners and stuff before. It can bond to stuff wet apparently, so it's good to have on the boat as well. It won't do anything major, but for small cracks it's perfect. So, and it's only like $5 on Amazon. I'll put a link below. Alright, so we'll mix that up and just put it on there.